Hey guys, hope you're having a great day today. My name is Steve. Thank you so much for stopping by my channel. Today I'm going to be reacting to a video entitled 7 Outdoor Objects I Never Saw Before Moving to America. This person is originally from the UK, and so basically he's saying these are 7 outdoor objects that are either not in the UK or maybe are very rare to find in the UK. So I'm really curious on what are some of the outdoor objects that I probably see on a regular basis and am very used to seeing in my day-to-day life that maybe you guys in the UK either never see or maybe very rarely see. I have no idea what could be on this list. So anyways, guys, let's go ahead and dive in and check out what are these outdoor objects that I'll find in America that I will not find in the UK.
Hello, I'm Lawrence and I'm on a quest to uncover all of the memos that Britain and America lost in the pond. And speaking of lost, I'm starting to lose my marbles being in quarantine so long.
Oh, this must have been during
for
COVID.
now, I think it's 8 days. I've been giving some thought to some of the things that I miss about the outside world. And, you know, I'm not just talking about sort of fast food joints that are different in both countries, but sort of just really random mundane objects. You know, like a wheelbarrow, for example. I'm not suggesting we don't have wheelbarrows in England.
Oh, okay.
That's an example of a mundane
I know
object.
you guys have to have wheelbarrows,
And I want to talk about specifically 7 of those objects that I hadn't seen until I moved to America.
Steel water towers.
I'm really longing for those water towers, steel water towers specifically, because we do have water towers in Britain, but they're concrete and look really...
Okay, that is interesting. I've never seen a concrete water tower. So is he basically correct, and this is generally what you'll find in water towers in the UK? Because all I'm used to seeing are the steel water towers. So that's really interesting. I've never seen a water tower that looks quite like this. Are these windows? Okay, that is a very unusual water tower, or you know, a design for a water tower. At least it would be here in the U.S. Let me know in the comments, guys. Is this what you're used to seeing on a regular basis when it comes to water towers?
Brutalist and like they were made in the 60s. In
They're
America,
very cool,
all
actually. I
across
like
the
the look
country,
of
they
them.
have these
They're
kind
very
of water
interesting.
towers that are just, they're in the middle of nowhere usually, and they're made of steel, and on the facade of them, they have the name of the town, and it's usually something like Snakesville. And you never see anybody near them or in them. I don't know what they'd be doing in them, perhaps replenishing the water. I don't know how water towers work. I just know that America has a lot of them, and you see them when you're on the highway, motorway.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
The next entry.
You pretty much have a water tower in every town. You know, it's just for, obviously, water storage. But that's really interesting. I had never even thought that water towers would be made of concrete. But I guess, you know, if you go back far enough, it makes sense that at some point, water towers would have been made of concrete. But yeah, generally speaking, the water towers here are made of steel, and usually the name is on the front of the name of the town, like he was saying. And a lot of times people will paint them really cool, like there'll be some sort of, you know, painting or design that represents the town or something like that on them. But yeah, that's interesting. Highway billboards.
Yes, highway-based billboards. Who would have thought? I certainly wouldn't have until I moved to the United States. And that's because we don't really have them in Britain. We do have them in city centres, but you're not going to find them on the side of the road, you know, because it's distracting, especially when it says something, you know, profound like Jesus has risen. You're going to take notice of that and, you know, crash into the car in front of you. And if you don't have insurance, then you are screwed. Ironically, a lot of the billboards are for insurance, so at least
that's true. It's very true.
I joked a moment ago about the kinds of things you might see on American highway billboards, but the truth is, anyone can really get an ad on those things. They often say, advertise here if there's nothing on it. And unless you have A, no heart, and B, a death wish, you also wouldn't want to crash into the back of one of these.
So that's interesting. So you guys don't have billboards. Like you said, you have them maybe in city centers or something, but if you're driving down the highway, you won't see a bunch of billboards on the side of the road. Not all interstates have a ton of billboards, but some interstates like I-95, which goes from up in Maine all the way down the coast, sort of all the way into Florida, that interstate has a ton of billboards. I'm talking about, especially if you're in the North Carolina, South Carolina section of that highway, you will literally see a billboard, probably 10 per mile. I mean, it's incredible. And like you said, you can rent them out. I don't know how much they are, but you can pretty much rent them out and advertise whatever business you want on them. It's just, that's really interesting. It does seem to be, he's right, it's usually insurance or lawyers or something like that. Not always, obviously fast food joints, the restaurants and hotels and stuff you'll find on the next exit and stuff like that will generally advertise on a billboard as well. But let me know in the comments, guys. So he's accurate in the fact that you guys just generally don't have billboards along your highways or your motorways, as you guys will call them. Yellow school buses.
Yellow school buses. I didn't grow up here as a child, so of course I never got to ride one. Probably never will, unless I become a bus driver. What color are your school buses? Or a parent on some sort of school trip. Do they do that? I don't know. But the fact of the matter is, growing up, I did see school buses, yellow school buses, in films like Superman and Forrest Gump. Those are just examples of films. But, I didn't think they existed in real life. This was quite a revelation to me. They're everywhere. It's not just in Indiana where I lived. It's also in Chicago. It's everywhere. I mean, you do see these yellow school buses everywhere. And I recognize that the majority of my audience is American, and this is probably profoundly weird to hear somebody talk about how yellow school buses are very widespread in this country. But I don't think they're used anywhere else in the world, or at least to my knowledge.
Really?
They're certainly not used in Britain. I used to get to school by jogging. That's not true. I did take the bus, but it was one of those sort of stagecoach buses, double-decker, so I got to sit on top.
Wait.
Not at the back with the cool kids, at the front actually. And but they weren't yellow. And as you can see, I like yellow. I'm wearing this in solidarity with the school children. I'm not. It's the first thing I found in my wardrobe. I'd be lying if I said that yellow school buses were the only outdoor object that I learned through the films. That also applies to our next entry.
So, you guys, obviously you have school buses, but I do know that probably you were more likely, if you lived in a city like London or a larger town, you were more likely to probably walk to school or to maybe take like a double-decker bus like he's talking about. But I'm guessing you guys obviously also have regular school buses as well, right? That's something I've really never looked at, how kids generally get to school in the UK. I'm guessing that, a lot of people walk if they live in walkable areas like London, for example, or maybe they take a subway in that case, or take a double-decker bus or something like that, or obviously the parents maybe take them. But if you live in an area where you have quite a distance to school, your parents can't take you, do you just take regular public transportation? Because I know the public transportation is much better in the UK than it is in the US, obviously. So it wouldn't necessarily surprise me to know that kids took public transportation more, like a regular city bus, for example, instead of a school bus. But that's really interesting. I've always associated school buses with the color yellow. That's generally speaking, all school buses are yellow, except for what we'd call field trip buses, which are a little bit larger usually, and they're buses that basically take you on a field trip. You might still take the yellow buses as well, but a lot of times you would take the white buses that were specifically, to take the kids on a field trip. Like we're going to go to a museum during the day at school or something, we would take the white bus. But for the most part, the buses that pick you up and drop you off at home are yellow. All of them are yellow. I've never seen a school bus in the US that is any other color than yellow. And I guess I just assumed all school buses were yellow. I just think it's a good color for kind of being able to see the bus from a distance. It's kind of a safety thing, I guess. But yeah, anyways, guys, let me know how it was. What kind of bus did you take to school if you took the bus to school? Was it a regular school bus, or did you take some other form of public transportation or something like that? White picket fences.
White picket fences, the like of which you see in the film American Beauty and other such suburban-based films. It reminds me of American suburbia now that I've lived here long enough, but for the longest time, you know, it was just part of the sort of movie set for me to make something look very pristine and idyllic and all of that. You'll occasionally see white picket fences here in different parts of Chicago. They're kind of rare, I suppose, but you do tend to see them at houses of families who've really taken care of their garden.
That's not,
and in Britain,
that's
we
not
don't
a lie.
have
That's
these
true.
kind of fences. A lot of our gardens are sort of framed off by brick walls or sometimes just shrubs and bushes.
Yeah, it makes sense.
That's not a euphemism. You'll also see in the US mesh fences around gardens as well. They're kind of low down, you know, they're just high enough that dogs can jump over them but never do because they're too stupid. And they seem like they're there to just sort of stop people from breaking in, especially those fences that have beware of the dog on the side. Now, please, America or anyone watching this, don't take this as a green light to think you can go and burgle people's houses in Britain. They still have security measures and fences too. I'm underplaying it, but we don't have white picket fences. We also don't have these.
Well, that kind of makes sense to me, you know, being on this journey for long enough now to understand that how old in general the UK is compared to the US. And I'm thinking a lot of the property lines have probably been set for quite some time. And so it doesn't surprise me a lot of your houses are made of brick or stone. And, you know, likewise, it doesn't surprise me that a lot of your, I guess, fencing or your walls, so to speak, would be made of like a brick wall or something instead of a wooden fence. You know, it seems like you guys use a lot more stone and brick than wood. I think for a big reason for that is because you live on an island, basically, obviously, compared to the U.S. We have a lot more trees here, so I think we have much more access to wood than you do in the UK. But, you know, the pros of a stone wall is obviously that it's going to basically last forever. And a fence has to be painted and it's eventually going to rot and you're going to have to replace it, you know, within your lifetime. And so that's definitely a positive. I like stone walls and stuff. You know, the few times I've seen them on some of these videos, I just thought they were so cool. Seeing along the English countryside, seeing all these stone walls everywhere. And it's just, they look like they're in the middle of nowhere. And they're literally basically what we would usually have like a wire fence, you know, for land like that. You guys, like a lot of times will have like a stone wall or something. It's really different, but it's something I really enjoy seeing. It's pretty cool.
Allow me to clarify, our houses do have mailboxes in the United Kingdom, except our mail doesn't go into a mailbox, it goes into a letterbox, and our mail's called the post. I hope that was clear. And those letterboxes are usually on the front door,
That's
right?
still so crazy to me, man.
Postman, that's...
I've never seen that in person.
Postmen, post women, post people, right? They have to go right up to the door and become intimate with your house. Not so in the United States, or at least not always. You will have those kind of houses where just in front of their garden or yard, they'll have a mailbox that's sticking on kind of a pole.
Yeah,
and
that's what I grew up with right there.
I suppose, a metal tube into which you put things, and then people have to go out and get it. I suppose it does promote exercise, which is needed in these quarantine days. We just don't want to come into contact with the post people or mail people. It doesn't matter what you call them; they're the same entity. Well, the different people. You get the point, basically. Don't touch the post people. And if you do, wash your hands for 20 seconds with soap, making sure not to get your water from one of these.
I actually learned that in a previous video. It was pretty shocking to me because I just basically here in the US, I'm sure a lot of you know this, you have the type of mailbox he's just showing you kind of like on a pole at the end of your driveway. Usually that's what you'll find. You'll find that in both, you know, suburban settings in town, but definitely always in the country. In the rural settings, you'll always find a mailbox like that. That's, you know, basically because the postman can just, or the post lady can drive down the road and just lean out and put the mail into each mailbox instead of having to go down each driveway, you know, especially in the countryside. But, you know, the other thing that houses have, which I have now, is basically a box that is attached to the wall beside the door. So they do have to come on the porch to put the mail in, but they don't actually insert anything into the door. You know, I've since learned, since I last learned that you guys have that, I have learned that that is something that some cities do have in the U.S. Some of your older, bigger cities like Philadelphia, I think, maybe Boston, and some cities like that will have some, you know, will generally have that type of thing in those kind of townhouses, especially, it seems like. But I personally have never seen one in person. I've just never lived in an area that had a mail slot like that. But anyways, guys, let's continue. Cylindrical.
I'll tell you a story.
When
I was 19 years old, I was a big gamer. I was well into video games, and one of the video games that I played was a little game called Die Hard with a Vengeance. And you're just swanning around New York City, I think, probably, and you can crash your car into just stuff, right? And one of those stuffs was a fire hydrant, a very American-looking fire hydrant that looks like this. They're more or less cylindrical, speaking in a pitch that only dogs recognise, and I only describe them as that to differentiate them from fire hydrants in Britain. Fire hydrants in Britain are nowhere near as sexy, and believe me, I didn't think I'd wake up today and say that either. They're just these brutalist-looking square things.
What? I thought all fire hydrants looked like... Where is it? Well, where did it go? I don't even know where did it go? There it is right there. Why can't I? There it is. I thought all fire hydrants looked like that. Okay. Good to know. That's something I didn't know at all. Where is it? Okay, there. Okay. How does this work? I don't understand where the water hose goes when, like, the fire department has a fire and they come and they're going to hook their hose to the fire hydrant here. Is that what you guys would call it? I guess you would. How does this hook up? Like, okay, when you look at the fire hydrant here, basically they just, this little cap here, they basically just can unscrew this, they screw the hose on, and then there you go. It's and then they turn it on and the water comes out. But I can't figure out how this works. I don't know. If someone knows, please let me know in the comments. How does this work? Or maybe I'll be able to find a video about this. I'm really interested in this now. I've never seen a fire hydrant like this. If I saw this, if I was to go in the UK and I saw this on the wall of a building, I guess that's where they're located, on the corner of, yeah, it looks like the corner of a building, I would have no idea what this was. I mean, this H2, I mean, I don't know. I really don't know. How does this work? All right, anyway, let's continue, guys.
Things with an H on them, and no, they're not for landing miniature helicopter, nor do they signify a hospital. I actually don't know what they do. If a fire breaks out in the middle of the road, when does that ever happen? I wouldn't know what to do. I don't know how to operate these things, right? Who does?
I have no idea looking at it.
Whereas American fire hydrants are absolutely gorgeous. They kind of look like elongated fireman helmets. Was that on purpose? Again, for the benefit of the dogs.
I don't know.
It can't have been, and I'm absolutely certain I wouldn't have made the correlation had I not been stuck in here for 8 days. I'm going mad, you know. How does the outside world look right now? Do people still have wind chimes? Do they still, you know, do they still raise these?
The American flag.
The American flag. And I suppose there's a very good reason as to why I didn't encounter this until I moved to America, and it's because it's America's flag.
Well, this is not something I'd expect you to see flying in the UK.
I think in Britain, pound for pound, we probably, or at least when I lived there, didn't fly the flag, the British flag, as much as America tends to fly its flag.
Yeah, I've learned that.
It's very culturally ingrained to do that, isn't it? My in-laws do it. Everybody does it. Even educated fleas do it. That would be impossible. They don't have the strength to lift up fabric, but they're bloody smart, hence being educated. I don't know how I got sidetracked there. But yes, the US flag is absolutely everywhere. Again, this is not just something you'll see in films. And I think there's an understanding that Americans are deeply patriotic. How do you pronounce it? Let me know in the comments below.
Patriotic.
And it's not just outside of people's houses.
Yeah, I say patriotic.
Flags. You'll see them on the back of trucks. You'll see them hanging on sort of company buildings. Don't know why I pronounced it like that. And just sort of everywhere. I mean, it really is everywhere. Sometimes you'll see absolutely huge American flags, and you can usually see them
definitely
about
do.
5 miles away. That way, at least you know what country you're in. And so that's it. 7 outdoor objects I only encountered after moving to America. I just wanted to list those to remind us of what we're missing. I mean, admittedly, we're missing quite a bit more than those things. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at...
All right, guys. This was, I knew a few of these, obviously, like the American flag. That's kind of a duh, right? It's like, yeah, I would expect you to fly the American flag in the UK. It doesn't really make sense. But I think what he's getting at here is that the US tends to fly their country flag more than the UK does. And I've definitely learned that. So many people have, mentioned that in the comments of certain videos that, you just don't generally see the UK flag or the British flag just flying, on the side of a house or even on the side of many businesses and things like that. It's definitely an interesting thing. I don't really understand why we fly the flag so much more. I've learned that you guys are plenty patriotic. You save your patriotism for certain moments of unity, such as the last night of the proms, for example, which was really awesome. At least what I've seen of it. But that was a very patriotic event with a lot of flag flying and stuff. But I don't know, guys, but it really is true. Like the giant flags, like he's talking about. There's some places like you'll see this a lot at like RV lots, like the places that are selling recreational vehicles or car lots. You also see this at like manufacturing companies and things like that, but they'll have these huge flags that are literally the size of houses. I mean, they're massive. I don't know exactly the dimensions of these flags, but they've got to be like 50 feet wide. 50 feet long. It's insane. But yeah, it's true. We do fly flags a lot here. I have no idea why that is, but it doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me one way or the other. I think that celebrating patriotism is a positive thing. And so I recommend anybody from any country to celebrate their country and be patriotic towards their country in any way that they feel like. And I think that's great. But the one that really surprised me was this fire hydrant. I don't understand how the water comes out of this. It like looking at it, just doesn't make sense. Obviously, there is some way that water comes out of this. I just don't know how yet. I'm going to have to look into that because I'm very curious about that. But I knew about the mailboxes, learned that a while back. White picket fences, I hadn't really thought about it, but it makes a lot of sense, that you guys would have, a lot more stone walls than wooden fences. It just like your houses tend to be built out of stone or brick instead of wood, totally makes sense. The school bus is kind of surprising too. And the billboards, that's surprising to me. I would have thought you guys would have had more billboards. And the water towers, that was really interesting. But all in all, guys, this was a pretty interesting list. I learned a few new things. And, it's just so interesting how so many things about our countries are completely different in a lot of ways, but very similar in a lot of other ways. But anyways, guys, enough of my rambling. Thank you so much for stopping by. Please click that like button. Feel free to drop your comments or suggestions about this video or others. And don't forget to subscribe to continue to follow me in my journey to discover my British and Irish ancestry. Until next time, guys, peace.